says that you can have a friend that is closer than a brother. And I've certainly found that to be a case with a few of my friendships, but it doesn't just magically happen, right? So when I do talks like this, I get feedback from my friends and my family. And so I was asking them, like, what is it about friendship? What does it bring to you? What does it give you life in what areas, and where is it hard for you? And I have a myriad of friends, and I actually was talking to a dude who's very different from me, single, introvert, mid-30s, also does speaking, and actually to big crowds. And I was just super interested in like how friendships affected him, because we don't talk about that enough, right? With our sons or with our brothers, like male friendship is so important. And I said, do you have a lot of friends? He's like, yeah, actually now that we're talking about that, I do. Like, I don't know, 10 to 12 really good friends. And I said, are any of them closer with you? He said, yeah, 3 of them. I'm like on a regular rhythm of meeting with them, and I guess they would be my closest friends. And I said, how do you recharge after, like, if you're an introvert and you do speaking gigs, and like, does that take energy from you? And he said, it does. I'd love it, but I go out of the city. I like to hike. I like to be by myself. I like to sort of meditate and pray. And he said, I actually have some friends who have a country house, and I just go there, you know, and kind of reset and relax. So I was like tracking with him for most of it, except for the whole hiking thing. Yeah, I want to, but I can't. I don't love it. It's fine. It's fine. So they went, and he said, I go to my friends. I sit with them. They're single, and they know how I feel. They know what season I'm in. And so it might surprise you that I'm telling you a little bit about Jesus's friendship story. That is the friend I'm talking about. It's a modern retelling. We know that Jesus was an introvert. It talks multiple times in the scripture about him going off by himself. The crowds being a little too much. He actually got in a boat once because they were pressing in, right? He did have 12 really close friends, the disciples. 3 of them he was especially close to. John and James, they were brothers, and Peter. Very different. Peter is like a big feeler, an extrovert, kind of his mouth got him in trouble sometimes. The other ones are more reserved. We know that they were tight because Jesus definitely spent more time with those 3. He shared things with those 3. He did more miracles when he was with them. I don't know if that was to increase their faith or to show off a little bit. Who knows? You know, dudes do that kind of thing. But there is this closeness about them that you have tiers of friendship. And that's okay, right? We don't really talk about that, but that is all right. There was another group of friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, and they lived in Bethany. And he would leave Jerusalem, and when it became too much, and he would just go and rest in that space with them. I am assuming that they were single. It doesn't talk a lot about, or it doesn't say anything at all about spouses. And I just love that he knew what he needed, right? That he took the time to rest and recreate and hike and be quiet and be with his people. It's also very clear that they were tight because of the conversations that they had. They weren't easy conversations. As a matter of fact, Jesus and Mary and Martha kind of got into it a little bit. And just the directness speaks to the love and connection that they have. And so the reason we talked about friendship today is because I don't think our culture trains us in it. And unless you had parents who modeled friendship, again, we go to this place where we think it's sort of a natural thing that's happening, and it just doesn't happen like that. I think we also think we can only be friends with people that we have an affinity for, a connection with. That's not true. The scripture said really the only thing you need to do to make friends is simply to be friendly. Pretty simple, right? And yet we find it sometimes hard to be kind in our culture, right? Or I'll look at someone and think, I don't know if we have anything in common, and immediately dismiss this person who God keeps putting in my path. That literally just happened in my life. And I'm like, I call her my sneaker surprise friend. I was like, you just blew my mind. I had no idea how much we had in common or how much you were ahead of me in this area. And it takes time to get there. It just takes time. I would ask you how you define friendship. I don't know. It's really different when I ask my friends about it, like, how do you define friendship? What's a good friend? And the most common answer, if I had to generalize it, was someone who's always there for you, right? Someone who's always there for you, which is lovely, and I agree with that, except for that it's actually impossible to have a friend always be there for you. Our expectations are often out of whack. Like, We need a group of friends. We need a network. And it's speaking about my twin. She has this group of friends, probably 7 to 8, that they've known each other for over 22 years. And I said, tell me what that looks like. She said, I have a friend who laughs with me. When I am feeling low, she knows. I'm calling her, and she just is hysterical. I have a friend who's very practical and logistically minded. She's the one who's going to get my kid, bring me food. She just knows what needs to be done, and she doesn't have to be asked. She said, I have another friend who's incredibly empathetic. And I said, I know who she is. You want to cry, you call Addie. Addie is there. She is with you heart to heart. And it is a place where we need to go when we have hard things going on. Another safe place, right? And all of these friends bring what Danielle needs, right? And Danielle brings to them different friendships, what we need. The friendship is not me and Susanna, right? The friendship is me and Susanna together. And this is so different than this. It's not about what I need. What does the friendship need? So I've been reading Shasta Nelson. She's a friendship researcher, and it's fascinating what she says. There are 3 components that are needed for healthy friendships. She also brought up the fact that in our culture, we will do anything to salvage a romantic relationship, right? We will call, we will text, we will listen like it's our job, we will ask good questions, and even when it becomes obvious that the relationship is ending, say this person says it's not working out, what often happens? We call, we text, we reach out, we want to know why. And the funny thing about romantic relationships, as valuable as they are, obviously, as much as you learn from every single one, you learn what you do like and what you don't. Every single one of the romantic relationships end until the one doesn't, right? So the impact that you have with the intimacy of friendship is so big because you have the potential for forever friends, you guys. Forever friends. You also have potential for new friends. I tier them. I don't want 100 best friends, but I would say I would love 100 friends. I would love them. At my mom's funeral, right before she died, I remember her saying to me, you're very lucky if you have 2 or 3 good friends. And I remember thinking, yeah, you're really blessed. And I thought I already had it figured out because I had exactly 3 really good friends, right? I'm like, done, finished, accomplished goal. And then yet at her funeral, stay-at-home mom, didn't work outside the home, went to a small church. Over 600 people came to her memorial service. And my sisters and I were like, who are all these people? We literally did not know. Now, we know she had 3 good friends, 3 best friends. That was Jane Miracle, Evelyn Denton, and Patty Heidemann. The most 3 different women you could ever meet in your entire life. We knew them, but we had 2 women come up to us in the receiving line and also tell us that mom was their best friend. No idea who they are. Even mom didn't know she had 5 best friends, right? She thought she just had 3. So I think that's so interesting. She made friends because she was always friendly. She was kind to the underdog. She wanted to connect with you, and there was Jesus in her no matter where she went. It just oozed out of her. And when I say there was Jesus in her, she was accepting and non-judgmental, and she didn't rule anybody out for any reason. She just has this true pastor's heart. That's how you begin to make friends. It's so important. The definition of true friendship is a mutual relationship between 2 people that is satisfying and safe, where both people feel known. That is a good definition. And to accomplish that, you need 3 things. You need, the first one is consistency. Consistency is literally just making time for your buddies, right? Calling them for coffee, texting them, going to lunch. Get crazy, do a girls' weekend. It's not an easy thing to do, especially Crystal and I were talking about it takes time to do it, but we take time on our phones. Did I tell you I was tracking my phone? Some of you guys know. Tracked my phone time for a week, 3 hours a day, people. We have the time. Now I'm ashamed of that, but it's true. I've settled it down a little bit and I turn it off at 7 o'clock, but it's like just this mindless, false connection. It's not true, it's not real. We need to invest in our people. Consistency. Second one is vulnerability. Not easy. It's not easy, is it? to share that which is hard, where there might be a little bit of shame, to not act like everything's okay and we've got it all together, to admit that there's an area in our life where we're struggling and we cannot figure it out on our own. Can't, no matter what we do, can't figure it out. Now, not everybody gets that piece of us, right? You don't just throw that stuff around, because your story is a gift. You offer your authenticity and your vulnerability in tidbits. A little bit here, a little bit there. Is this person trustworthy? Do they have my best interest at heart? And you do the same thing for them. This teaching is not about me telling you guys how to make your friends be better friends. It's about me being a better friend. That's like literally the ultimate goal, and what Christ has in it for us, which is literally to be on mission together. It's not just about Jen and I. It's like Jen and I are teaching. Why? Because we feel like God telling us to. Because we wish someone had been teaching ahead of us. We wish that someone would have told us it was okay to talk about really vulnerable things. Now, flip side, you can be too vulnerable. Have you guys ever been in a grocery store and you literally just ask someone, hey, how you doing? And they turn to you and you sense like it's on. You get the eye contact and the intensity, and you should have picked up on that and you didn't, and they just share, right? It's like this overload of information, and you know, you wished you hadn't asked. Not because you don't care and not because you're not kind, because it's too much. The over-vulnerability speaks to neediness. It speaks to a lack of self-awareness, and honestly, it makes the other person feel so uncomfortable they kind of leave a little bit burdened, okay? Now, it's not because that person is trying to make you uncomfortable. It's because they don't know. It's that simple. I'm not saying that person can't be a good friend. She really could be. Obviously, she knows how to be vulnerable. But I think the way Shasta said it, she said, it's like someone making this huge cake and literally force feeding you spoon by spoon, and you don't even like cake. You don't like cake. You just, I mean, a bite of pie would have been nice, but you wish they would have asked, right? That's what it's like. Although if you don't like cake, I'm not sure we can be friends. I don't know. I don't know if I can go there. So, vulnerability, consistency. Last one. It is so cool, positivity. So this is the one that amazed me. Like literally, 46 years old, had no idea how important this was. It's not kindness, it is literally having a hopeful heart and mind towards situations. It's really difficult to do when you're going through something difficult or a hard time. Having said that, don't you know the people that no matter what, they're just shiny, they're thankful, they have a grateful heart, and I find myself drawn to them. So, scientific fact. To have offset one negative interaction with one person, right? One, you need at least 5 positive interactions. So, you could have a friend that is so faithful. You could have a friend that's loyal, that has your best interest at heart. But if they surround themselves or operate in negativity and they drain you and you can't figure out why, that's it. It's simply the ratio. Again, should you get rid of that friend? Are they toxic? No. Do you know what toxic means? It literally means dangerous and poisonous. Like, we use that in our culture, toxic friendship. Like, those two words shouldn't really even go together. It's very rare for that to happen. True friendship is when you can tell your friend the hard thing. Hey, so it feels like you've had a lot of hard things going on, and I'm sorry, but you might be cycling in fear, or I wonder if you're, are you doing your gratitude journal? Like, being the kind of friend that can point it out, because we can't see our own stuff, right? I need people to do that for me, you know? Now, after you have that conversation and there's not a response, I don't know, what does that look like? I don't know. Are you being consistent? Are you being kind? Are you being vulnerable? Are you listening? But for me, that made sense. I wish I had known this information before. I wish I had known how to handle conflict, right? In a friendship, instead of just letting it fade away, right? We don't do that when we're dating someone, or let it blow up and then not address it. It's so important to do the uncomfortable thing. And have you done that with a friend? Have you had to say, hey, I need this from you? Or in an effort to be more transparent, I know I'm struggling with this, or I don't feel heard. We have to ask for what we need. We can't change them, but we can change us. Why would we do that? Why would we do that? Because the effort put forth in the friendships produces good things. So right now we're going to share, Jen's going to share the story of how we met. Before I do that, I want you to sit in the consistency, the positivity, and the vulnerability attributes, and think about where you're struggling or where you might be able to do better. You probably had friendships pop up in your mind when you heard the 3 different things, like, oh, that girl needs to work on that. Yeah, maybe. What do you need to work on? Let's just talk about that. Sit in that a little bit. And then when Jen's done, I will share mine with you. It was glaringly obvious, and I'll tell you how I knew. All right. My friend Jenny Lynn, she's going to downplay herself. I'm going to stop. She's going to downplay herself and make herself a little bit smaller than she is. I wanted to be friends with Jen because her name kept coming up in my ear. I wanted to be friends with Jen because her reputation and integrity preceded her. I wanted to be friends with Jen because I heard her laugh across the atrium, and I said, I want to be a part of that. I really wanted to be friends with Jen and started to pursue her when I heard her husband speak on stage about how unloving and how unkind and how brutal he had made his marriage, and she pursued him and loved him anyway. It was in a season when I knew I wasn't being the best wife, and I didn't know how to do better. I didn't know how to love better because it was about what I wanted. And I was like, maybe I should reach out to that chick. So that's why I want to be friends with Jen.
Thanks. Let me give you the backstory. Before we met, I, as a kid, was an awkward girl. I was a tomboy who played football on the playground with the boys, and all the cute little girls who dressed cute, like, I just didn't get them because I was all about tactile fun and rough and tumble. However, I also loved, like, Barbie and love stories, and, like, there was this part of me that loved it. I just didn't know how to be that. And so I had some experiences with girls at a young age where I felt shut down. And so I developed this thing where I thought, yeah, girls, especially if they're girly girls, not for me. We don't have anything for each other, and we can't even speak the same language. And so I, like, did this to most women. And so I also had a few friends at that time who would be considered girly, but they were a little younger than me, had been married not nearly as long as me, and had younger kids, so I was ahead of them. And so there was always a mentor kind of relationship, not really peer, so they didn't speak into my life. I kind of had control over it, if that makes a little sense. And I like control a lot, an unhealthy amount. And so I remember getting a Facebook message from Michelle. And you know, when somebody you don't know Facebook messaged you, you creep on their page. And I remember she had this, like, cute little fedora hat on, and, like, I don't remember what it was, but I just remember accessories, like they were accessories. And I was like, I don't do accessories. Great, like, okay. And I remember, like, a pat response, kind of like, just like, hey, great, yeah, thanks for messaging me. And I didn't really, like, I did this immediately because she looked like this perception of what I had in my mind that I don't connect with. And then I remember there was a party that she and her husband had at their house to kind of do something to bless some Crossroads staff. And Josh and I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll go to her house and we'll talk. And we're coming around the curve and the bend and the trees, and I drive up on the house, which is, like, picturesque in the middle of the woods, and it's big. And I immediately, and this is gross, I'm telling you, I know it's gross, said, oh no, she's wealthy, she has a big house. What do we have in common? No, we cannot be friends. Again, it was another filter that I had put up that made me do this. We had fun at the party, and I even enjoyed talking to her. But it was still like this, because in my mind, like, that, you know, we can talk, but we can't, like, she can't get in here and I can't get in there. And then it was like a full court press coming at me. And for those of you who don't know, that's a basketball terminology where a lot of people come at you at once. And so my husband and her husband liked each other. And so we had to go on a couple's date. And I was like, okay, great. Like couples dates are good, and I liked her. We talked, but in my mind, it was for my husband. And man, we went, and we had so much fun. We laughed. Like we laughed till I almost peed my pants, which is something that often happens. And we talked, and we were vulnerable, and they were real. And I started learning that, they got married when they were 20, Josh and I. Well, no, you weren't even 20. You were younger than us. You were like babies. We got married young too, okay? So that's something we had in common. They did not come from a lot of money. They worked their tail off and were broke when they got married. Josh and I, same thing, okay? So gotta kind of throw that filter out. And then even like her level of vulnerability broke through this perception I had of women that I went, oh, okay. Like I felt like instead of this, I started kind of going like this. Like I was still defensive, but like I felt like, okay, well, I mean, I'm feeling a little safer. Maybe I can do this. And then I remember going, all right, I'm gonna be vulnerable. We're gonna go to lunch together without our husbands, just by ourselves at this point. We go to Joseph Beth, and I am like enormous pregnant. Like, I mean, enormous with baby number 5. And we're sitting there, and we're having this nice conversation, and some cute little waiter walks over with my food and my salad and proceeded to dump an entire container of salad dressing on my stomach. And I remember like going, and like I wanted to like flare up and get angry, and I looked at Michelle, and like I can see that she's trying really hard not to laugh. And so then I lost it, and so the two of us are sitting in this restaurant, and when I say cackling, I mean like, and like I'm leaning over, and the kid who spilled it on us is going, like he didn't know what to do because we looked like we had lost our minds, and he literally ran, didn't say a word to us, but like I remember in that moment, there was this shared like hilarity and fun, and like, it felt like, all right, I'll bring him back. Okay, so we're there, and I'm feeling like, okay, we can do this. We can kind of pursue friendship. But I also was recognizing it was the first time I had an opportunity to have a friend who was a little bit older than me, had kids that, at least one that was older than my oldest kid, because I'd always had friends who had much younger kids, and so again, I was always ahead and didn't have somebody to look to, and who had been married longer than I had. And when I looked at their marriage, what I loved was they fought for each other. And it was awesome to have somebody who was just like right here to us, and we go, this is totally worth fighting for right here. And so we had started kind of hanging out periodically, and I mean, this is all within maybe a 6-month period. And Josh and I are sitting on their beautiful front porch, and we're all hanging out. And out of the blue, they're like, hey, you guys want to go to Mexico with us? Of course, my husband's immediate was like, well, hell yeah. And in my mind, I'm going, well, we got childcare, we got, but I just felt this yes in my gut. And I stopped going through my filters of how to make it happen. It was just yes, yes. And like, I think we went in what, like 4 weeks? Like it was like real quick. And mind you, I had 5 children to find childcare for, and it was school year, like it was chaos. But we went, and that sounds extravagant to be able to go to Mexico with them. Mexico was great, but what was extravagant was we had 3 or 4 days without any distraction to sit in one another's company and get real and authentic and get to know one another. And like that takes, like the kind of like authenticity and closeness that we got, it takes years to get. We were able to do that in those days that we were just with one another and being real. All of our guards down, everything down. And we came home, and I felt known, and I felt encouraged. I felt, not only did I have a friend, my husband had a friend, and like we actually liked each other's families. Like it was like, wow, this is awesome. And I started to understand why all this was happening, because literally 3 months after we got back from Mexico, shit hit the fan for both of our families. Both of our families had people in them who were struggling with severe depression and suicidal thoughts. I mean, it was like we just got slammed, and it was like, what the hell is going on? And here's where our differences came in. And for me, understanding real friendship was super amazing, because I am a fighter. God created me to fight. And when I hit something hard that's coming at me, I want to get up and I am like the bull in a china shop. I will go after it. I will never wave a white flag. I will run and I will take people down. That is who I am. Now, I do that often without recognizing my feelings or how other people feel. And that's often a problem. Michelle is a feeler. What I would have said was weak prior to knowing her, because I didn't do feelings. I fought. And Michelle recognizes the value of acknowledging how you feel, talking about how you feel, working through how you feel, giving the people that you love time to actually do that as well. And I remember kind of bumping up against that, both of us. We would bump, and it was a little uncomfortable for me at first, because I was like, feelings? No, we don't wallow in our feelings. Literally, those were my thoughts. And what I recognize is, no, Jen, you actually have to talk about them and experience them so you can really move on and know how to fight. And for her, it was me going, we can't sit long in this, but it was both of us together using the way that God made us to move forward. And our families, because of the way that God brought us together, benefited because of our differences. And you could look at it through our whole family and even our kids and our husbands, but us, this happened because Michelle pursued me because she felt like God put it on her heart. Even though I was a jackass in the beginning and kind of did this, she kept going. And then God brought something beautiful out of that. We experienced together the Acts community. It's described in the book of Acts in the Bible, where you share everything. You give of what you have. You hold one another up. All of that happened. My whole family moved into her house. I just want you to picture this. At this point in time, there was only 5 children, but they ranged from 15 to, I think Joshua was a year and a half, because we had his 2nd birthday at their house, and we all moved into their home. Now, if somebody was moving into my house, I would have systems and I would have things and ways that things had to be done so we didn't irritate each other and so that my things could just still go the way they needed. I walked into Michelle's house, and it was like this. What I have is yours. You can rearrange my dishwasher if that makes you happy. And I did. A lot. A lot. But it was, for me, it was another moment of love that it challenged me in who I was and how I thought. And it made me recognize that she was strong. It takes somebody really strong to be willing to go, it's all right. I can watch you guys tear my house up, and I'm happy to have you here. And she did that. And we tore it up. My son, 3 years old with curly afro hair, would go up to their bedroom, probably 6 o'clock in the morning, because we were sleeping, and wake them up. And we wouldn't even know, because she was like, great, yeah, come on. He might climb in their bed. Whatever. That's love, guys. I would be like, let me just take you right back up to your mama, thanks. I wouldn't do it. It was just a beautiful thing. But what I'm recognizing is God had a plan. He knew that we were going to need one another. He knew that we both needed to be sharpened in the areas that we were weak. And we just had to be willing to kind of step into that. So after we had lived with them for 18 months and had baby number 6, which we created in their home on a washing machine in their basement, and we still joke about it. They're gonna have a new house, and we told them they need to have a washing machine in the guest bedroom. I'm just sort of kidding, just a little bit. But we got really real, guys. After 18 months of experiencing life with them, having our 6th child, which she helped me celebrate, because for the first 7 months of pregnancy, I thought that I was going to be committed. It was really hard. And I just remember she was positive. She talked about positivity there. She was positive where I was negative, and she really helped me get to a place of celebrating. We heard each other scream and lose it on our children. We heard each other in our worst moments. We saw each other wanting to possibly hit our husbands for things and having to control ourselves and have conflict. And then we would have coffee on the porch, and we'd talk through it, and we'd ask each other hard questions, and we'd push each other. And there were moments where I hated it, because it was so hard and so vulnerable, because she pushed me to look at things that I didn't want to look at. And now I know it was a beautiful thing, because I grew because of her willingness to not care about my comfort, but to care about who I was and who God had designed me to be, and to push me towards that. So we moved out. 18 months, they got their house back. And you know what we recognized? Proximity makes friendship pretty easy. Super easy. We couldn't just go on the porch and have coffee anymore when everything had calmed down. We actually had to call one another. We had to schedule things. And guys, I suck at that. I'm really bad at that. I like things to just happen. Well, they don't just happen. They happen because Michelle would call me. Michelle would be like, hey, can you guys look at your calendar? Because we want to get together. Hey, Jen, can we look at this date for this time? And like, she has taught me the value of pursuing your friends and being intentional with time with them. Because if we're not, it starts to fizzle and people don't feel valued. And we had breakfast probably 2 months ago. And I remember we were talking about this, and I remember going, oh, I'm not pursuing you. Like, I suck. I'm really like, and I don't mean that in like, oh, but like, I had dropped the ball and wasn't doing what I needed to be doing in our friendship. And like, she said it. And I had to go, I need to change that. 8 years into a friendship, and we still have to say hard things to each other. However, the hard things lead to life. They are life-giving. When you find friends that you can laugh with, you can cry with, when you can celebrate and you can mourn, encourage, you can speak hard truth to, you gotta hold on to those, and you have to fight for them, because it is a gift from God. And ladies, I would not have pursued Michelle, because in my mind, my friends should have looked a certain way. And I would have missed out on so very much. And so what I want us all to consider is, like, there are people we are naturally going to just hang out with, but God, like, has something better for us. For me to be my best self, I need to be challenged in places I'm weak. And if I'm only hanging out with the people who are wired like me, it's never going to happen. So we have to be open for that. And we have to be willing, when somebody crosses our path and asks you, hey, you want to hang out? And your first thought is, we have to be willing to go, wait a minute. Do they love Jesus? Do they speak truth? And are they interested in growing? If that is the case, that is fertile soil for an awesome friendship. Because you're aimed in the same direction. It's super, super important. God totally intends for us to have authentic community where you can let it all hang out, and believe me, we have let it all hang out. We shop for bathing suits together, and I kind of wish there was somebody who had a camera in there. Not really a camera, maybe just recorded that. Yes, that would be much better. But like, we've let it all hang out, literally, figuratively, and we still love one another. And I wouldn't have that any other way. And I recognize that friendship is not just feeling good and laughing, or going out to a bar and laughing, or being able to do something that is super enjoyable. Friendship is that, and being willing to get down and dirty and do the hard work to push yourself and your friend toward God. So my favorite verse, Proverbs 27:17, is iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And I believe real friendship is that. That is exactly what it is. And if you've watched any movies, you've heard a sword being sharpened, and you hear it, and that's when things are getting like scraped off the edge to make it smoother. That part's not real pleasant. Not real pleasant. But a sword that is dull is not sharp, and it can't do what it's supposed to do. And so our friendships sharpen us, and we need it. That's it. Okay. So I want to give you, am I supposed to do this now? Discussion? A discussion question. And I'm going to push you and make you uncomfortable, so I apologize now. And I want you to just be authentic in your answers. So I want you to consider your current circle of friends. I want you to, like, just picture this in your mind. Are they diverse in their giftings and their strengths? And what I mean by that, do you have people who are empathetic, people who are fighters, people who are supportive, kind of like what she described her sister's friend circle? Do you have that diversity? And then with probably, let's see, 3 or 4 people, I want you to say, what are the strengths of your friend circle? What are the things that you desire more in your friend circle? Okay, so take 5 minutes and do that right now.
Thank you, because I know that that's not easy. We were talking about time is really hard, the consistency piece, simply because often we're in different seasons of life. You know, it's hard when you have a bunch of babies and your friends are single. It's hard for the singles when friends have a bunch of babies. Like, it's equally, reciprocally hard. So it's important to be consistent and make that time, because if you don't, it starts to feel a little weird. And then when you don't talk, it gets a little weirder. And all you need to say is, I want time with you. When can we make it happen? And you just accommodate as much as you can. So I don't know for you guys which one was the one that was the hardest, the consistency, the vulnerability. I think you were nailing vulnerability, well done. Vulnerability or positivity. But I'm going to show vulnerability right now and tell you that in polling my friends, like I do when I have a talk, the one that I thought I struggled with was the one that I got feedback on, which is positivity. You see, I grew up in a house where it's really easy to get angry quick. Like, don't feel chaos, don't feel frustration, don't feel sad, don't feel depressed. Just go straight to anger because it feels really proactive, and I'm comfortable there. Well, what that looks like emotionally, if you're dealing with positivity or negativity, kind of looks like negativity. Like, that's the place I can go. And so it was interesting because I polled like 10 friends and I got 7 to 9, 7, 8, 9. I was like, nailing it, you know, on the positivity. And then Jen and my husband gave me a 4. Right? And I was like, hella 4, what is happening, you know? These people know me though. So here is a lesson in truth talking. Like, we can keep surfacey, guys. I can have a ton of friends that are at tier 2, and I want that. There is nothing wrong with that. But we don't really change and grow because we can't see our own stuff unless we are talking to people who know us well, who love us, and have our best interests at heart. I knew that Steve and Jen did, and it was interesting that they both gave me the same number. So I texted Jen and I said, tell me why. And if she would have seen my face, I would have been very sad because I'm a feeler. Immediately she said, you've grown so much here. So here's a tip. Start with a positive. Having said that, when things get hard, you dip to 3, 4 quickly. As soon as I read it, I knew it was true. Then she said, you quickly jump back up to 7 and 8, and that is where your growth is. So I was like, okay. Well, then I got Steve's text back. Well, his opinion matters the most to me. And when he said 4, I don't want to say heartbroken, I don't want to overstate, but I was shocked. So waited till I got home to have that conversation because text is not going to do. Don't have hard conversations over, you can't tell tone, you don't know what's going on. Don't do it, ladies, trust me. So I said, please tell me why. Tell me why a 4, because I'm surprised. He said, are you sure? It's like the emotional equivalent is, does my butt look big in these pants, you know, right? So he said, you know I love you. You know how, same thing, you are working hard on your emotional capacity. He said, but especially in this hard season, we've had some hard stuff going on with our friends and family. He said, I feel like you take on some of that emotion, and that the thing that is really good in you, your empathy and compassion, the good thing, it gets twisted. It gets twisted and turns into you take on other people's things possibly. And it certainly affects how you are in the moment, and it can rob you of your present joy. And I knew that that was true, but I wasn't aware of it. Now, and I kind of pushed back a little and I said, well, your empathy level and mine are about as far apart as possible. And he said, I know, that's why we're good together. So that took that into account because that is true. Having said that, we've had suffering. I want to be present in my joy. That's okay. You can still be compassionate and empathetic with your friends when they're going through hard things without it getting twisted and becoming your thing. So be aware of this. How can you be a better friend? What's the friendship you love right now and you're going to pursue that? Where are you, like, are you being consistent? Are you being positive? You know, are you being vulnerable? And where's the one you're like, gosh, we're going to have a hard talk? Do it. Because what's the worst case scenario? You could lose the friendship. What's going to happen if you don't have the talk? Oh, you're going to lose the friendship. It's just going to be very uncomfortable when you run into them out in public. Very uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be, right? Okay, so in conclusion, I love this talk, you guys. We could go on and on about this. Where are you struggling? Where are your people struggling? Are you there for them? Where are you joyful? Where are you celebrating? Where are you celebrating with your friends? Are you there for them? Remember I said C.S. Lewis said that friendship begins when someone shares something and you look at them and you go, oh, I thought I was the only one. Me too, right? Have you had that with a friend? Like you're like, this shame piece or this hurt piece. I thought I was the only one. But then when you grow in connection, when you grow in friendship, when you become about something other than yourselves, right? You're not just talking about your own friendship. It's not this me seminar, right? You move towards something. And the practical example for Jen and I is the teachings. I do it because I learned so much about myself. Honest to God, I don't have any answers for you. None. I just told you I had no idea I was struggling with negativity. That's why we do it, you know, because you got to ask the hard questions because you want to be in a space where you're learning and growing. Jesus sent the people out 2 by 2, right? To tell the good news, to be about comfort, to act in love. He didn't send us out individually. You know why? Because it's hard. It's really hard to do life on your own. We aren't meant for that. We're meant for connection. So, follow-up question. What are you going to do with the friendships in your life? How are you going to bring peace and freedom in the hands of feet of Jesus to that person? Are you going to give new friendships a chance, right? Are you going to model it for your sons and your daughters? It's not about gossip. It's not about competition. It's not a beauty contest. It's about being present with your people and doing life together. So right now we're going to do questions. Be thinking about anything, practical, impractical. Like when Jen moved in with me, she said, I have a question. I said, what? She said, what if we're really dirty people? I said, that's a great question. House is already really dirty. You're really welcome here, right? Like, what do I care? Like 4 kids, 12 kids, same difference. So Susanna Croce is my friend. I've known her for about 4 years. I remember looking at her, my first words to her were on a mission trip we were getting ready to go on. I said, hey, I have some really hard stuff to tell you that I don't want to because it could affect this mission trip and my whole family's going. And we're either going to be really good friends or we're not going to talk. There was no in between, right? We kind of bonded that day. But even her and I were talking about the last 6 months. We are in a small group together for the last almost a year and a half, but it hasn't been to the last 6 months that we've really connected. And even having that conversation, who has that conversation? I looked at her and said, I feel a lot closer to you since couples camp. And we got to tell each other why. And it was that next level of vulnerability. It was that I failed at this thing, right? So Susanna Croce, come on up here. She's my buddy. My golf clap.
I invited my friend Courtney Walton because I wanted there to be a representation of all the single ladies. And because Courtney has got a core group of friends that I think I really dreamed about having when I was single. And so I believe that you have insight that I won't understand because I didn't experience it until now. So, sweet Courtney.
All right. So just tell us who the question's for, and we'll repeat the question and then answer it.
So that's a really loaded question. I think the best thing I can do is give you guys examples. So I have friends that I would call my core, and it's funny because it's kind of like a word we throw around, and you just use that, like she has a core group of friends. And so I just looked up the definition, and it's basically the tough center of a piece of fruit. I mean, and I was like, yes, that is what it is. It's the group of women that you have done all the things that these ladies are saying, that you've invested the time, that you're willing to speak truth to each other. So I have that. That is incredibly important. Those are the women that when you're going through something difficult, that they know you well enough to reflect the truth back to you. They can help you discern when, you know, if you say something and they'll be like, that's a lie, swap. That's another lie, swap. You know, they can fight for you in those moments. And then I have another group of friends, you know, that I've just
Go
had.
back. What do you mean by that's a lie?
It's a lie that, so like if I'm struggling with making a decision, and the example I can give you is when I was trying to decide whether or not I was supposed to take a particular job. I was very insecure about it, and so I sat with these women and I said, I just don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm equipped. I don't think I'm capable. And they were like, why? Why do you feel that way? And I would say, well, specifically because I was really comparing myself to the person who was in the shoes before me. I'm not this. And they said, well, that's not true. You do have an affection for kids because of this, because the job required some of that. Or I'd say, well, I don't have the experience. And they would say, well, that's not true. You do this. So whatever I fired out at them, they were able to listen to me and be able to say, that's not truth. That's actually, you're believing something that isn't true. That's a lie, meaning from the enemy. And this is who you are and this is who we see. Because I think it can get really hard sometimes. We don't always know what's going on or see ourselves the way other people see us. So then I have those friends. And then I have friends that I've known for 20, 25 years because I've just lived that long. And those, I call those women, this is just a quick, really cool story. Those are, I call them my bunco friends. How many people know what bunco is? Yeah. Okay, it's a really dumb game that they play in the suburbs. It's dice, and basically you drink a lot. It's your excuse to get away from your children and drink. So there was a group of women, some of you, just a little bit of my background. I did not come into a relationship with Jesus until I was about 35. So I knew most of these women from that life, okay, from the person who I was. So I basically went through this transition of learning about who God was and going to Crossroads. I was basically textbook come to Jesus person here. And so what ended up happening during that time is these women knew me from, you know, I was like early 20s. We kind of pulled away from each other because the interests were different. I felt convicted about things that I was doing and saying when I was around them. They were not horrible people. I just felt torn. And so I basically just stopped going to bunco. And probably about 5 years went by, and I love how you guys talked about listening for God's leading, because he knows us better than we know ourselves, and he knows the friends we need. He knows us. He knows our hearts. And I literally heard one day, you need to go back, because these women were still meeting. And I was like, what? And it was like, you need to go back. And I had no desire to get back in that circle of people. And long story short, went back. All those relationships that had been wounded in my journey of coming to a faith and them feeling like, you know, I had left them behind, have all been redeemed. I mean, it's been like 10 years since then. And at least 2 of them have come to Christ. And one of them got baptized at woman camp a month ago. So I think that's just listening to God and how he directs us in those friendships is huge.
Honestly, something that Josh and I learned probably the hard way is even when we are struggling, we needed to make sure our separate friends or couple friends were for our marriage, not just for us individually. So there are some friends that I don't share the struggles I have with Josh because I know that they would prefer to make me happy. Mm-hmm. But what I want in a friend is a friend who is going to fight for my marriage and be willing to hear things and push me back towards my husband and offer him grace, or me grace, but their goal is our marriage. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that answer you at all? Okay, sorry. That is a big thing for my husband and I right now. Like we are all about our friendships and the people that we let in, not like peripheral friendships, but people that we give time and who have the ability to speak into us. They must be for our marriage. And if they're not, they stay way, way out there. So.
Have I found boundaries, healthy boundaries with the feeling part of me, the empathy part, to keep it in a healthy place and not let it, get twisted into something that's not good. It's literally where I'm at right now. It's where Jen and I have been talking. It's where Steve and I have been talking. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I have areas that I need to work in, and I've like pulled all these weeds, and I'm like, that garden is cute. I'm done. And then you turn around, and there's like a half tree climbing up you weed, and you're like, I thought I was finished here. I find in times of high trouble and pain and grief, it is so much harder for me. And I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing. I think that's a good piece of my mom that I have. I also think that my mom's cancer probably was exasperated by trying to be a peacekeeper and handle other people's emotional burdens. I'm convinced of it. There was no other factor, for it to happen. I think we're physically affected by that kind of thing. So yes, accountability with my friends, people who really know me, my sisters, Jen, Angela, my friend from Louisiana, and certainly Steve. I'm a big fan of therapy. I believe in counseling. I've talked to her about that, and she reminds me of it. Journaling for me is really good because I write things I don't quite know about myself sometimes. I'll be like, like the way I write it, it's a revelation. So, but honestly, the biggest thing for me is prayer. When I'm centered in prayer, and by the way, prayer is such a religious word. It's just talking and listening. That's all it is, and I'm real good at that. When I sit with like God, especially in the morning, and just have some time and gratitude journal, it centers me. And I think when I'm centered on a daily basis, I'm more myself. It's a literal regular rhythm versus one big or two things. I need more of a daily reminder.
The question was, do single women expect their married friends to be the kind of friends that their single friends are? Is that right? Okay. I can only speak for myself, and it might be what some other single people feel, if that's helpful. For me, I would say no, I don't expect them to be the same type of friend because of the different responsibilities that they have. I understand that. I'm different. I'm not going to be the kind of friend that their married friends are. So I expect there to be some difference there. But I think there's wisdom that my married friends can offer me. But I also make sure that I have a community of single women because I am just in a different life phase. But I think it's important to do that with whatever life phase you're in. I am someone who lost a father, and I have friends of mine, intentional friends, who also have lost a parent because I know that they can understand me in a way that my friends who don't have that experience can understand me. And so I am very intentional about finding those pockets of people. But it doesn't mean that I don't share with my friends who have parents. It doesn't mean I don't share with my friends who are married. I'm getting together Saturday with 4 friends who are all married and have babies or babies on the way. And I remember for me, I myself started to pull away a little bit from them because I thought I don't fit them anymore. This feels different. This feels odd sometimes because the conversation would naturally flow to what they were experiencing, which was marriage and babies. And I didn't want them to not feel that. However, I had a friend one time, we went out to dinner and it was the 4 of us and we were physically separated. So it was the two married women on one side and 2 married women on another side. And I was on the end. And we made a joke about it, like, you're literally on the end. Hey, ha, ha. I was like, I'm not really that funny. But okay, I'll process that later with my single friends. But I remember thinking like, And the whole conversation was about engagements and weddings and marriage, which is okay. That's where they were. But I will never forget that night because we left, and I think I had gotten a new job at that time, and we didn't talk about that. But I was in a space where I was all in my feelings. So I wasn't like, hey, about my new job. It was just like, okay, well, let that pass. So when I got in the car, my friend called me and she said, hey, how are you? And I was like, which means not okay, translation. And so she said, I just want you to know I'm sorry. I'm sorry on behalf of all of us who were at the table. We didn't once ask you how you were doing. We didn't once ask how the new job was going. We monopolized the whole conversation about something you couldn't even contribute to. And I was like, friend, I love you. Because I just felt known, you know what I mean? Because I never want to be the friend that's like, what about me and my singleness? And let's talk about that. That's not natural, and it doesn't, I just don't want to enter the conversation that way. However, I felt so seen and known, and I guess that would be my response is see your friends, whatever that looks like. You don't have to change your life to be a different kind of friend to them because your life is different, and there are things that she can learn from you where you are, but also be aware of where she is, and just remember to see her. Just remember to ask about her and what she's doing and where she is, if that makes sense. It was a bit of a ramble, but.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
And you don't have to answer, but I would ask you an additional question. Is she in crisis right now? When someone's in crisis, they need more support. And it's okay if you don't have all of the time, but giving grace when people are grieving, going through a divorce, whatever the hard thing is, we kind of need to sacrifice some of our stuff. Having said that, if it's a 90-minute conversation about the same thing 4 times a week, and they leave feeling lighter and you leave feeling very heavy, that can be a verbal dump. But they don't know unless you tell them what you need. So our instinct is to be like, nah, I can't do that anymore. Versus she's going through a really hard time and you say, I want to be here for you. And you just start off with, what can I do? And let me tell you what I need. It's not an easy conversation, but it's so good on the other end. You're going to feel a lot closer. Anyone else?
First, I just want to say that I don't know how many people here even go to Crossroads, but generally speaking, I think we put this pressure on what community is. Yeah. Like it's a buzzword, right? Like, go get community, got to get community, go find community. So I think I know some younger couples that are struggling with finding community as couples. And I think you guys had such good points. It's about the expectations. We go in with these expectations. The core group that I have, we are couples. And I really think it's because we were young, dumb, and stupid. We didn't know. We weren't trying to do anything. The women connected through Time Out for Moms, if anybody's old enough to know what that is. I know Shally is. Which was our first community group here at Crossroads. Of course, it was women, right? Can I get an amen, ladies? Anyways, so we became friends through that, and then we wanted our husbands to get to know each other, and then I just think it was God's favor. They all love each other. I don't think that always happens, and I think even if you have 1 or 2 other couples that you click with, that's good enough. So I would just tell you to take the pressure off of that, especially the younger couples, because I think that it really does have to be organic. And I think when God's involved, it'll happen. It will happen. And then I will say, this is what's been really funny that I've noticed, is that I am attracted to women who are like my husband. So it's so important, because I can't tell you how many times I have gone to Shally, raise your hand, Shally, because she thinks like my husband does, and I do not. You talk about how you're opposites. I'm not the feeler. I'm like the get it done. And Michael and I will be in something, in some sort of, conflict, and I'll just be like, and I'll spew to her, and I'm just like, I don't understand. How can you do da 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 da? And I'll go on and on and on. And I'm like, this is what I want to say. And she'll look at me. She goes, yeah, you don't want to say that, because she knows me so well, and she knows how he'll respond. So I would say, to answer that, it is incredibly important if you can find it. And look around you or think about who's around you and who you're attracted to. If you are married or dating, usually there's a personality type that you have, and the whole opposites attract. So that's been a huge blessing to me to be able to lean into her when I know that I'm going to blow it if I don't just take a breath and get some good advice.
So how do you love on a friend who is in a marriage that is very difficult and you don't respect how the husband is treating her and before their marriage? My pat answer is God is for reconciliation and he can redeem anything. And so keeping that in your mind at all times. And supporting her and speaking truth without tearing him down. If the truth is that he is harming her, that's the truth, and you can't not speak the truth. If it is more of an emotional thing going on and you're not really in there and seeing, I would ask questions about her as well. Dig into, tell me your part in this, because there is always two parts. That doesn't mean that like she's doing something horrible, but there's always two parts. And I know that in my marriage, when I was pushed to look at myself and figure out what do I need to address, rather than focus on only what my husband needed to address, often as I addressed those things, there were things that my husband addressed naturally because I wasn't focused on telling him what was wrong. I was worried about myself. That doesn't answer it completely, but I can tell you it is not helpful if you are not supportive of the idea of redemption and reconciliation. I would honestly, if you're hearing the same things and you're really struggling, I would push her to a counselor. Because you can't be that for her. You can love her and speak truth to her, but if there are things that you're hearing over and over, it might not be yours to carry. It might be something where you lovingly say, you might want to go talk to a professional about this, and because that was huge for me, and there was no friend who was going to give me the things that our counselor gave me.
You know that story of Job? He lost everything. He didn't deserve any of it except for his wife. And his wife said, just curse God and get it over with. Let's just die. Like lost their house, their family, I mean, their wealth. And he had 3 friends, and they got there. And it says that they sat with him for 7 days, and they didn't say anything. I know I've been in a situation where this one has come and sat with me, and she knew better than to say anything because I had nothing to give her. So sometimes just sitting, honestly, just being there or practically helping is really helpful, but I agree with you.
It's a good question. So the question is, how do you not let your singleness define you or be the main thing about your group of friends? Is that right? I would say this is a layered response. A friend told me this once, that singleness is not a thing to be fixed. It's just where we are. And I think sometimes we can get in this mode of thinking where it's like, how do I get out of this? How do I fix this thing that's wrong? But there's nothing wrong with us. It's just where we are. And so I would say lean into that. Like lean into, where's my friend? She just told me that today. Lean into where you are and look at not just singleness as your identity, but what else is there about me? Singleness happens to be one thing, but what is there about me that in this state, I can do some things that I might not be able to do when I'm married. So how about we travel, girlfriends? Like, why don't we do some things and not just feel like we are either missing out, or the conversation always has to be about what we are not or what we don't have, but what we do have because of where we are. And I would look at the whole part of yourself, not just that one part, because we are a whole woman, right? It's not just, we're not defined by, I'm not married, but I would say the married women aren't defined by their marriage either. It's part of who they are. It's a significant part of who they are, but they're a whole woman, and we are too. And so I would say, look at the things that God has put in you, in your friends around you, like what makes your friendship, that circle, that core unique. What kinds of things can you lean into each other to receive? Does that make sense? A little bit? There are probably a whole bunch of other single women that could articulate this a little bit better, but that's what's coming to my mind. Yeah. Thanks, Hannah.
Courtney knows who she is. She's defined by who she is, who God made her to be. And did we just pick up on the positivity there? Like, this is where I'm at and I like it. What can I do? Come on. I'm really direct, so I'd ask him why. I'm not sure that's the right response, but I would be like, hey, I'm really interested in your feedback and it feels like you're holding back. Is there a reason why? You know? And is it in a group setting or is it just one-on-one? Because it's difficult sometimes to do that unless you are one-on-one. Honestly, though, the specificity, I think the specificity of, I'll ask Jen, is there an area you think I'm struggling with I'm not aware of? That's pretty general. But and she'll tell me if she does, but she also knows my triggers, like if there's a pattern of behavior or a struggle that she'll literally hold me accountable to. And so I would ask a very specific question that you want feedback on, because we kind of know what we're dealing with, right? I mean, we may not know the whole thing, but we kind of know where we might be struggling and where you want feedback. Susanna, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say sometimes it just needs to be modeled for people. Like this friend may love you dearly, but have no idea how to do that. And usually it comes from ourselves, like, oh my gosh, it's the friend that can't even tell you there's something in your teeth. You know, they're like, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt them, or I'm afraid of, you know what I'm saying? So I think maybe if you start by modeling it for her and just be patient. I have been like jumping out of my seat because I feel like can I just say something? Like a 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yep.
Cut me off.
Yep.
What's my motivation? I have such a heart for women to be friends because it's no matter where you are spiritually, we all know the state of the world today and what happens with women across the world, that the enemy hates us, okay? And you can read anything on scripture that'll tell you we're the crown of God's creation, right? The very tippy top, the best, the last thing he did. And so my motivation to work really hard at female friendships is because this is kind of our hashtag. We are better together, you guys. We are so much better together. And if we're willing to push and work hard at it, we can like lift each other up, make each other better, call each other out, refine each other. But we miss out on that because everything out there will tell us it's a competition and we're not supposed to be getting in each other's business and we're too fragile. So I would just say, like, just knowing that should be pushing us and energizing us to want to work harder at those conversations and push each other, hopefully, for you guys.
That this is not about you, like that sort of me mentality, and that kindness really matters. Kindness is so important. It sounds so benign, but you know, sometimes it's easier to be kind to the dude who's handing you your fast food, you know, at McDonald's than your own family and friends, because they are a safer place. So, Courtney, I'm curious. What would you say? Teenage Courtney.
Teenage Courtney. I would say that I would tell her, you are worthy of being loved as you are. Like your authentic self, all the everything. That is who is worthy of being loved. And that is who people want to be around. So to get rid of any veils, any mask, and honestly, if I'm looking at that girl right now, anybody who was a friend with the mask, to get rid of them. Like, you are worthy of being loved, your authentic self.
Yeah, that. Oh man, I would tell my teenage self that it's a lie that protecting yourself and not being real is actually protecting me. I thought that I had to hide my brokenness, and I thought that I had to put this picture out of who I was. And when I did that, in my mind, I was protecting myself. And in reality, I was just digging this hole deeper and deeper. And so I would tell myself, authenticity is a key to freedom.
All right, so in conclusion, I would tell you that the most vulnerable I've been recently is in my small group, and I had to share something with them that I was not comfortable with. And I was with them for probably over a year before I decided to share it. And that is the fact that I've been struggling with my weight. I'm probably 30 pounds heavier than I want to be. Typically, that's something I can figure out on my own, right? I can go up and down 15 pounds, and for some reason in the last 3 years, I can't. And I didn't think it was a big thing. And I was like, I felt like this prompting, like I was like, you haven't shared that with your group. And I'm like, yeah. It's private. But when I did, burst into tears. So I am good with emotions when I know they're coming. But as a feeler, when I don't know they're coming, that is the most vulnerable I feel. And so I finished it, I did it, I shared it. Typically, I would feel better the next day. Did not. Can't tell you how uncomfortable I was. Brene Brown, if you've never read her, she does shame and vulnerability. She calls it the vulnerability hangover. And so I text Jen, didn't text my small group. I said, hey, I shared that with them. And she said, awesome, that's amazing. How do you feel? And I said, like shit, wish I hadn't done it. Like, it's really bad. And she said, like, not even a pause, this immediate response that says, get up out of bed and act like you do. And I just sat there for a second, and she said, we have to retrain our feelings. Me too. If anyone else had said that to me, I could not have heard it that day. She saved me hours of mental anguish because I knew it was true. Because I knew she loved me, because I know she has my best interest at heart, and because she knows I'm trying with this. So not to sit, right? Not to sit in the emotions too long. It's okay that I felt like crap. It was the right thing to do. I still have this thing I have to figure out. And the truth of it is, why is it hard for me to share it? Why is it hard to share with my small group? It's because I haven't figured it out on my own. And what if I don't? Will they still love me? Will they judge me? Or will they accept me where I'm at through this journey, right? It's not a small thing when you're sobbing in the middle of the floor and you didn't realize that it hurt that bad. It's a big thing because there's more to it. So I got a picture of that text I got from Jen. And I sent it to my kids, teenagers, 21, 19, and 15. And I said, get your friends like this. Ones who will tell you the truth. Treasure friends. Get you some. So that's why I titled it this. I just hope you feel blessed today by your friendships. I hope you grow more friendships. And I'm really thankful that you guys came. I take your time out during the week. That's not an easy thing to do. So thanks.